So, please forgive me for my voice. I do have a bit of a chest cold going on. But I wanted to follow up. I am going to talk about the RNC a little later, but I wanted to just take a couple minutes to follow up on some details I found quite interesting in the criminal complaint against Kyle Rittenhouse. Basically, this is why you were arrested, and this is the stuff we're going to try to charge you with. Now, if you read through the criminal complaint, it's available online for free. It's all over the place. It's only 5 pages. It's detailed, but it's only 5 pages, so it's not too hard to get through. It's got a couple interesting things in it. One of them is essentially eyewitness testimony that a detective gathered. Not so much testimony, but basically a detective talked to somebody, and this was the notes they took, of the guy who, if you watch the video where when the shooting first starts, after the dude fired in the air, and Kyle has run over to like this kind of black vehicle, and there's this, and then the Rosenbaum's chasing him, and then there's like another dude like off to, I guess it would be Kyle's left, but the viewer's right. It's that guy, whoever that guy was. That was who they interviewed. This detective interviewed, and he basically gives a like complete recap of the things he saw and what he saw and what he thought. And he thought like, oh yeah, Kyle fired the first shot at the ground, but then he wasn't sure if he was hit himself because he felt something hit his leg, probably because asphalt explodes when you shoot it. So he didn't like it, but then then he heard more shots, and then like he said Kyle fired a total of 3 times. That's what he said. Okay. So now I'm going to read to you the second piece that I found, I should say, extremely interesting. Other than the whole document itself is actually kind of interesting because, not every day this kind of thing happens, right? Let's see. The Dr. Kelly of the Milwaukee Medical Examiner's Office conducted an autopsy of Joseph Rosenbaum. Dr. Kelly indicated that Rosenbaum had a gunshot wound to the right groin, which fractured his pelvis, a gunshot wound to the back, which perforated his right lung and liver, a gunshot wound to the left hand, a superficial gunshot wound to his lateral left thigh, and a grazed gunshot wound to the right side of his forehead. So he actually wasn't shot in the head. That was actually just a grazing hit. So there's people trying to save his life who were like wrapping the tourniquet around his head. Like that wasn't where the injury even was. Now, if you'll notice, I mentioned he was shot in the back. Now, from the video, there's absolutely no indication of Kyle maneuvering behind the guy. You can pretty much kind of see Kyle, and you can see the guy right in front of Rosenbaum, and like it's almost like the one object's in front of the other, and then you see Rosenbaum go down. You don't see him spin. You don't see. It doesn't seem like the opportunity to get shot in the back ever occurred. But the other thing is that and that's what this thing asserts. This criminal complaint asserts in that part he shot 3 times, but Rosenbaum's got now 5 gunshot related wounds, well basically 5 gunshot wounds, 5 distinct wounds that couldn't have been caused by the same shot, unless you're Arlen Specter and you believe in magic bullets. Okay, that complicates things a lot. So I went back and I watched the video and I was like, wait a minute. How is this guy hit 5 times? And did Kyle hit him 5 times? Especially when the witness is saying, oh, the first shot hit the ground. He was pretty sure. Which I'm guessing probably is the one which is possible is the one that grazed the thigh, or this guy just was wrong. But I listened to it. There's more than 3 shots going off, and when you hear, like, they kind of all sound different. Now it's really tough to identify gunshot stuff when you're just listening from a regular camera, from like a phone camera, anything, because what we're used to hearing is gunshots on TV and movies, and even in like a cell phone video, or you're watching on the internet and somebody's shooting a full auto and you're like, oh, that's really cool. And even if it's real audio, you cannot really recreate what it actually sounds like to shoot. In fact, if somebody fired an AR right next to you, like this other guy, you might not actually be able to hear everything else going around. It's that loud. Firearms are extremely loud. If you've never shot one outside, I recommend you do that and not, put your ear protection on. and or have ear protection off and stand at a distance and then like take a listen to like how loud some of this stuff is. It's like, whoa, the movies don't get this at all. So we see like people shooting in a hallway and then they're able to like actually hear when they're done. It's not. They're seriously loud things. So it wouldn't be completely out of the realm of possibility that this other guy didn't hear the other gunshots after the initial shot when the dude was being chased, or did he not hear the pistol that went off in the distance? That's possible as well too, because under chaos, sometimes things get masked when you're far away, but not an AR at point blank, or I should say that close at least. Now, basically, when you go back and watch the video, you realize there's a lot more things that sound like gunshots going on during the moments where basically Rosenbaum goes down. It is very, very, very real possibility that somebody else was involved and somebody actually was shooting at him. That's what he seemed to have thought, which is why he had turned around, and is why he shot in the first place. Because, as we know from the video, Kyle did not shoot first. Basically, they at the very least fired a gun in the air. And as far as Kyle knew, like they were aiming for him because they were, trying to get him. You hear the noise, and you hear the multiple shots, and it's like there's something's really strange about this. The thing we need to know that we don't know right now that will basically put this to bed, whether basically somebody was shooting at Kyle and hit Rosenbaum in the back, at which point Kyle's completely off the hook. They no matter how they stretch it, it's going to be, it's like, oh, well, somebody was shooting at him and he defended himself, and somebody shot the guy first accidentally and probably saved Kyle's life because the guy was standing in front of him. I don't know how this guy could have gotten shot in the back. And the one thing that the autopsy, or I should say, not that the autopsy doesn't say it, but that the criminal complaint doesn't mention it, obviously, because it wouldn't help their case. The gunshot wound to the pelvis and from the back that went through the lung and the liver, any recovered bullet fragments, any idea of what kind of caliber was used. Now, 5.56 at close range, when you use steel core 8.55, which is kind of the standard 62 grain, that's going to pretty much just go straight through at close range. It's got a steel core. It's a round that's designed to penetrate barriers a little bit better. It's kind of controversial, but the point is that if you're hitting an unarmored target like this dude running at you and you shoot him with an 8.55 or 8.55A1, even the new one, it's going to pretty much pass right through. It's going to leave a nasty wound, but it's going to go straight through because it's got a steel penetrator, unless you hit something like heavy, like a pelvis or something. 55 grain is a little different. 55 grain, when it hits, it's lighter, and it starts to tumble, and it kind of splits off into like three pieces. It's a really, really effective bullet if you don't hit, if you're not trying to penetrate a barrier, or dealing with body armor. Like 55 grain does not do good against body armor or barriers, but it does pretty damn good against unarmored targets in terms of stopping them. So the round with the pelvis, that, maybe there's a chance that passed through. But the one that they said went through the lung into the liver, that obviously stopped. That's going to be recoverable from the corpse. And they're going to have to figure out, essentially, what caliber was it? Was it a 55 grain that did this? And also, was it from the same gun? Because you're going to be able to tell somewhat from essentially the marks on it, whether it's got proper rifling marks. He was using a cheap-ass DPMS, and it might have a 1-in-9 twist, and the guy shooting at him might have had one with a 1-in-12 or a 1-in-8. These are all these forensic things that happen when you're investigating a homicide. Or, obviously, but the more likely is that it's a weapon of a completely different caliber. We still don't know if the dude with the Glock who was coming to kill him actually had shot her or not already. I mean, he did intend to kill him as far as we could tell. I mean, the video, it looks like it, and then the social media posts going around, he might have just been talking shit because, oh, look at me, I survived. But there's more to this, and we're going to have to find out if this autopsy comes out and basically they say, oh, it's another round, it's a different bullet caliber. I can't see them doing anything but dropping the charges against him completely. They might try to keep the weapons charges, but like the weapons charges in here aren't even for like trafficking. It's for like illegal operation of use of a dangerous weapon. Like that's the stuff that's tied in, and it's like, well, If it's self-defense, then it's completely irrelevant what weapon he used to defend himself, unless you're going to get the ATF on him. It's not illegal for him to use a weapon in self-defense. It might have been illegal for him to open carry it, but then what his attorneys are going to argue is they're going to say, well, this was his place of business and there wasn't enough cops and the government didn't provide adequate protection. What did you expect him to do? It doesn't matter if he had a bazooka at that point. If the lawyers are able to argue that, and then that basically the government was neglectful, and that this kid basically wouldn't be alive if he hadn't defended himself with the means he had to defend himself. No weapons charge is going to stick. I can't imagine the feds coming and saying, "Oh yeah, because you crossed state lines or did whatever, we're going to send the ATF to your house," and just it's not worth it. You're going to arrest the hero because you don't like the gun he used to defend himself. It's tough. I am highly interested into seeing where this develops. You can look up the document, the criminal complaint, online. Multiple sources have it. I couldn't find a PDF, but I know there's a PDF out there. I like the PDFs because if you can use Control F, dart around the document when you're looking for like specific things. When it's like an image, like the one I have here is like a scan. You can't really like you have to read everything and then remember what page things are on in order to go back to. You have to take notes like a real person. Excuse me. But yeah, it's free. It's basically criminal complaint. The state of Wisconsin is the plaintiff, and they send what this is the document they send to Illinois to try to basically extradite him. Now he's getting his own attorney, and he's not a threat, which is really what's wild about this, because he's not considered a violent threat by the Illinois police, which is really good for him, because they basically not having him basically. The idea that essentially he had turned himself in, and the police at no point, both in Kenosha and within Illinois, looked at him as a violent threat or flight risk or unstable, that is huge for his defense. And then the fact that okay, he's out of prison now, and he's basically got 30 days to get his legal counsel together, because he went from having a public defendant to having basically big shot private attorney, who I think is Nick Sandmann's attorney. That's going to really weigh really well in his favor. And Illinois may look at this complaint and they may read what I'm reading, and they may say, well, what you've described as self-defense, I do not believe this is a sufficient criminal complaint to extradite him for first-degree murder, and they may reject it. Now, they're supposed to do things, but they may contest it. There's a lot of things that can happen, and essentially, if they give him up and they say we can test this, because it's a guy from their state, that again works in his favor, because now it's almost like, well, this state didn't feel he was a problem, even based on your criminal complaint. It's all just they're slowly building a case. They got to find out we got to find out from the autopsy what the caliber rounds, especially particularly that one that hit Rosenbaum in the back, because in the video, at no point does Kyle aim the weapon at the dude's back. Like they're always facing each other when he go down. So unless some really weird shit happened, like bizarre ricochets or somehow a spin and twist really fast that the camera didn't catch, which obviously isn't the case, but they got to find out what happened with this round. And if they find out it's not a 5.56 or it didn't come from the same rifle that Kyle had, he's going to walk. It's over. They basically are just going to withdraw the whole complaint, because if they can't prove the first killing was a murder, then the second two things he got in trouble for defending himself, those don't have a prayer at all. Their best case is for the first one, because of the fact that it was the first incident. Now I think because they were shooting, that he had absolutely reasonable fear for his own life, so they would still lose. But in terms of like, if you're actually your job is to be the prosecutor and you got to find the angle to get this guy, that's where you're that's your strongest approach. And that's the only way you're going to be able to charge him for any of the things that happened after the fact. So it's interesting. I'm going to follow it, and I'm gonna I guess I'll comment on it as it comes out. But yeah, keep an eye out for when they figure out what kind of bullet that was. We may not find out until a trial, but basically they find out that it wasn't him who shot Rosenbaum in the back. Goodbye case. And I think he's going to walk anyway, but, I don't have a lot of faith in the justice system. He might get an activist judge who wants to make an example out of him. Plus, the media has already smeared him, so this kid's life's already upside down. But, yeah, interesting. Very interesting.